In this challenge, survival expert Ed Stafford ventured into the African savanna, where not only crocodiles but also hippos and lions roamed everywhere. He even ate what elephants couldn't digest, pushing his ability to endure hunger to a whole new level. He started on a boat, with crocodiles and hippos eyeing him like a delicious, fatty prey. Luckily, they didn't strike right away. Otherwise, this episode would have been cut short right here. The first thing after reaching the shore was to find a safe shelter. But before going too far, he stumbled upon a pile of elephant dung. Inside, there was still some undigested food, perhaps his first meal. It was really tough, but eating something was better than nothing. Sunset arrived quickly, and since most of the area was open savanna, climbing a tree to rest was the best option. This would help prevent attacks from crocodiles, lions, and leopards. He chose a suitable tree and prepared to climb up for the night. But unexpectedly, there was a venomous snake on the tree. With incredible speed, it was one of the most dangerous snakes in the area, so the best option was to avoid it entirely. He had no choice but to pick another spot. When it comes to survival, safety is the top priority. To avoid falling during the night, Ed intentionally tied himself to the tree using his belt. It was incredibly secure, truly a genius move. After a terrifying first night with little sleep, Ed woke up to find countless tracks left by animals from the night before. At this moment, Ed spotted a herd of elephants passing by not too far away, including many baby elephants. If you ever encounter this situation in the wild, don't get curious. It can be extremely dangerous. However, wild elephants do have their benefits. As they move through the area, they break small trees, leaving behind branches that can be incredibly useful for building a shelter. He tied the gathered branches together, and in no time, the framework of his shelter began to take shape. On his way to gather more materials, he collected some undigested seeds from elephant dung. These seeds contain a lot of oil and are also an economically valuable crop in Namibia. He returned to camp after gathering a large number of tree trunks. Now, it was time to figure out how to get them up into the tree. Using bark as a rope, he attempted to pull the logs up to save energy and time. However, the rope turned out to be a huge disappointment. With no other choice, he had to climb down to the base of the tree and lift the logs up one by one using a stick. Finally, after more than 10 rounds, the bed frame in the tree was successfully built. After securing a shelter, the tense atmosphere could finally ease. He replenished some water before moving on to the next task, using rocks to crush the seeds he had collected in the morning. In this situation, that was the best meal he could have at the moment. However, in the middle of the night, dark clouds and lightning suddenly appeared. At this moment, the shortcomings of his shelter became evident. He was completely exposed to the rain. He hadn't expected that, despite the scorching daytime heat, it would pour in the middle of the night. His entire body was soaked and shivering, with the howling wind making it feel like he could be blown away at any moment. Ed found himself in a real dilemma, as the lightning bolts could strike him at any time. After enduring a long night, Ed was lucky enough to make it to the third morning. As the sun rose, he took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh morning air, and prepared to start a new day. But unexpectedly, Ed locked eyes with a crocodile and a hidden hippo lurking in the river. Taking advantage of the moment while the hippo was still at a distance, Ed quickly grabbed a bunch of water lilies from the shore and bolted. It was truly dangerous, but that was his breakfast. The roots of the water lilies were a great source of starch. After eating 2 pieces, he immediately felt his body re-energized. Next, he needed to continue searching for materials to build the roof. Reeds were an excellent choice for roofing material. As long as he could gather enough, there would be nothing to worry about. This way, he wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the previous night. After that, all the reeds were moved to the base of the shelter. Ed used a rope to lift them up once again, and this time, the rope finally didn't let him down. Fortunately, the reeds were much lighter. He bundled them into small bunches and secured them one by one onto the roof. This was truly a busy time for him. The roof was finally completed. It provided shade from the heat and protection from the rain when it came. This marked a new milestone in Ed's survival journey. On the morning of the 4th day, the first priority was to find protein. Not far from him, Ed suddenly spotted a giant lizard resting on a tree. But the lizard was lying very high up in the tree to avoid danger. Undeterred, Ed picked up a small stick from the ground and began to climb, determined to make grilled lizard. But unexpectedly, the lizard noticed him and took off. A long chase ensued between the two, the lizard sprinting ahead while Ed pursued relentlessly. Suddenly, it stopped abruptly and dashed straight toward him. Without hesitation, Ed swung hard, but unfortunately, he missed. Helplessly, he had to watch as it escaped into the wild. Otherwise, it would have been a hearty meal. Left with no choice, he headed to the riverbank and drank some water to stave off his hunger. At this moment, the rain began to fall. He quickly gathered materials to start a fire and rushed back to camp before the downpour arrived. Back at camp, he immediately started making a fire. Sure enough, the flames ignited, and with the help of the wind, he successfully got a strong fire going. But to place the fire on the treehouse, he needed to build a surface with mud. Quickly, he grabbed some mud from the river and spread it over the floor. Then, he brought the burning wood together. Unfortunately, his hand brushed against a hot log, but it was nothing serious. In the end, just before the heavy rain arrived, the fire was successfully lit. Time quickly passed, and it was now the 5th day. As always, the first thing Ed did upon waking up was search for food. By chance, he found an antelope horn by the river. He decided to use it as a water container, which would help reduce the number of times he needed to drink directly from the riverbank. Next, he picked up a long, straight stick to craft a simple fishing spear. This gave him a weapon just like the ones used by primitive hunters in the wild. After finishing his spear, it was already near dusk. As Ed returned to camp to rest, he unexpectedly stumbled upon 2 orange fruits on the ground. He couldn't believe there was a fruit-bearing tree in this area. However, these fruits were quite different from the oranges we usually eat. The flesh inside was soft and jelly-like. Although they didn't look particularly appetizing, they seemed to be packed with sugar. It looked like tonight's meal would be another simple one. On the 6th day, Ed was determined to go fishing in the river to prepare a proper dinner. Although the river was full of dangers, it also meant that it was teeming with fish. Perhaps the small pond ahead would have fish. He kept trying tirelessly to find them, but after more than 30 minutes of effort, there was still not a single fish in sight. Another long day passed without any gain. He returned to camp and ended his 6th day of survival there. The sun rose, marking the start of another day. After 6 days of hunger, and with age catching up to him, Ed felt his speed and strength weren't what they used to be. Because of this, he decided to rely on tools and planned to create a throwing device. With this tool, he could instantly double his power, making the spear faster and stronger, increasing his chances of catching fish. First, Ed carefully selected a suitable branch. Then, he began crafting the tool. After more than 15 minutes of work, the fishing tool was finally complete. It looked quite sturdy and ready for action. But just as Ed was ready to catch fish in the river, he was shocked to see a crocodile already waiting there. And not just one, there were 9 of them. They were lurking beneath the water, waiting for an unlucky prey to wander too close before launching their attack. Facing such dangerous creatures, Ed had no choice but to run for his life, once again breaking his promise to the audience. By now, Ed's hunger had stretched into the 8th day. Determined to change his fishing strategy, he planned to create a small trench to lure the fish in and then use a stick to finish it off. Thinking was one thing, but doing was another. Without any tools to dig, Ed had no choice but to use his bare hands to carry out his plan. After that, he used a stick to strike the water hard, trying to lure the fish out of their hiding spots. Although this was extremely exhausting, Ed had no choice but to endure it for the sake of food. Very quickly, an unlucky fish got caught in the trap. He used his hands to toss it onto the shore and immediately grabbed it. He was so overjoyed that he couldn't stop laughing. Finally, he had meat to eat tonight. He didn't let me down. Tonight's menu featured roasted seeds as a side dish, while the main course was grilled fish. Although there wasn't much meat, the satisfaction of taking a bite was beyond words. The flavor of the fish was incredibly enticing, far better than just drinking water all the time. Time passed quickly, and it was already the 9th day. Ed reused the tool he had crafted a few days ago and spent the entire morning catching fish with it. He threw it again and again, hoping to catch a fish. Finally, his efforts paid off. He actually caught one. Unexpectedly, Ed caught a tigerfish with razor-sharp teeth. After returning to camp, he scaled the fish and then grilled it over the fire. In less than 10 minutes, the roasted tigerfish emitted an irresistible aroma. The fish meat was sweet and delicious, but Ed had to be careful because it had far more bones than other freshwater fish. That night, he had a very good sleep. This was also the final night of his survival challenge. On the morning of the 10th day, he woke up early to clean up everything and return the campsite to its original state. He packed his bag, preparing for the journey home. As he walked, he took in the beauty of nature and the wildlife around him. He arrived at the meeting point and boarded the boat. The moment Ed stepped onto the boat, this episode of the Wilderness Survival series came to an end. Hopefully, you enjoyed his survival journey. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you next time.